Hey, it's James here from eBass Guitar, and today I've got something a little bit special for you. I've got a full interview with the world-class bass player Roger McLachlan, who lives in Melbourne, Australia. He's played with artists such as John Farnham, Jeff Aitchison, and the Little River Band, and he is a master of playing this instrument, the fretless bass. So how this lesson came about is I've just put a video out called The Greatest Fretless Bass Guitar Intro Ever. And this teaches you the fretless bass intro to You're the Voice by John Farnham. I was wondering who on earth the bass player was, and a mutual friend of ours called Andy, who also does some work for eBass Guitar, connected us together. And this led to the interview and discussing how this incredible bass lick came about, and a bunch of others. So Roger has been super giving with his time and his knowledge and his experience. Please watch this video from beginning to end because there's some real pearls of wisdom in there. And also make sure you check out the You're the Voice, the greatest fretless bass guitar intro ever, because you'll see and hear the licks and also discover the story of Roger, how Roger did this in just one take. Hey Roger, welcome to the interview. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience of doing the original session on You're the Voice. It's amazing to have you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me. My absolute pleasure. I love talking about this song.
Brilliant. I love it too. It is absolutely one of my all-time favorite songs with one of my all-time favorite fretless bass intros on the front of it. So my first question to you is, how did you get this session? How did you come to play upon this song?
Oh, gee, it's a long story, but look, all through the late 70s and 80s, I was the kind of session king in Melbourne, Australia. So I was doing all sorts of stuff. But how I actually got the job was through David Hirschfelder, who was Farnham's MD at the time. And I'd been in a band with David for 3 years called Pyramid, which was like this fabulous kind of jazz fusion band, if you like. Because of that, they, from what I can gather, they were been recording this album for months and months and months. And at some point they'd got everything recorded for You're the Voice, and they're sitting back going, but something's not, something's missing from this track. They'd had real singers and real guitar, but all the bass they ever had was programmed. And I think David Hirschfelder said, hey, why don't you give Roger a call and see what he has to offer? So that's how I got the call to come in and play bass on this track.
So the question I'd love to ask this is, did you know when you went in and heard the track, did you know it was going to be a worldwide hit?
Yeah, it was pretty obvious, James. I mean, I walked into the control room, and this is a studio I've done thousands of hours in. I mean, I knew John. I'd worked with John in the past, Farnham, and Doug Brady, the engineer. I knew him. So it was just an evening session, and it was just the three of us in the control room. And they had like 24 tracks tied together, right? So they'd record a whole bunch of stuff. So they had a safety 24 track with a track for me to put some bass on, right? And so they played me the track. They just played me what they had. And I'm sitting in there, and as soon as they played it to me, even unmixed, it still sounded great. And to hear it at full blast in a studio monitor environment, this song just absolute hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was obvious the song was going to be a hit. It just had everything, like particularly when the chorus comes in, it's just huge.
I think it's one of the greatest choruses ever written. That's my opinion on it. How did you make the choices of what bass you were going to add to the track?
I came in with a fretted and a fretless. I think they actually wanted fretless. I can't quite remember because I put some fretless bass on Touch of Paradise as well. There's me playing a little bit of fretless on that. It's kind of mixed back, but it's there. I don't know how fretless came about. I was known as a fretless bass player, and so I think that's why I just dragged out my trusty jazz bass and plugged it in, and off I went, you know.
So how many bass parts are on the original recording? What is there in terms of low frequencies?
There's just me.
Just you. Is there any
Yeah.
keyboard parts, bass, or anything like
Well,
that?
there was would be yeah. They had bottom end going boom, boom, real loud. The thing is that it got lost in the mix because the bass drum, well, the sample of the bass drum, which is apparently a sample of a Porsche car door slamming.
Amazing.
Like, bang, that sound that you hear is actually
Yeah.
not a bass drum, it's actually a sample. David Hirschfeld had Fairlights and all sorts of samplers going on in that track. So they had some program bass, probably DX7, but it was very static. It was just playing boom, boom, you know, just kind of locked in with a kick drum and was really not doing much because the bass drum takes up so much bottom end frequency that there was no point in me playing down there. It just kind of gets lost. So I think that's why, see, the first thing I recorded was the chorus. They actually didn't envisage any bass in the opening verse. They kind of wound up, they played it to me, said, okay, look, we're going to go to the first chorus. Let's see what you come up with there. And so the first chorus comes and I just start playing, man. I mean, it's all pretty much, there was no chord chart. There was no direction of what we want you to play. I made a conscious decision to kind of play fretless starting on the C, almost like a bagpipe. I think in my mind, I was thinking droning bagpipes, you know? And so that's why my bass line in the chorus is up in the middle register. If you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm playing F on, I'm playing F on, is it the 8th fret, you know, on the A string? That's where I'm kind of playing F, E flat, D, E flat, F, you know. So I consciously was playing up there and playing fifths and drony octaves because I knew there was a bagpipe solo coming in the key of B flat. And so I think in my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to kind of drone up in the middle register rather than be right down the bottom where the kick drum was, you know, and the drum heavy kick. So I'm staying out of those low frequencies. So I'm kind of sitting up in the middle register. And so that's kind of what I played, man. It's just kind of improvise, me kind of doing what I do. You play the track and I start composing on my bass. Yeah.
Beautiful. So did they replace the whole track with, let's call it real bass or bass guitar that you play?
Well, they did, yeah. They just had it there as a placekeeper, really. The bass wasn't doing much. It was just playing boom, ba-boom, boom. There was no slides and vibratos and octaves and fifths and stuff like that, you know, that I'm doing in the choruses. I don't think there's any program bass. I believe if you could ever get your hands on an American mix of that album, Whispering Jack, I think they've used a little bit of the program bass in the mix somewhere. I've actually got a vinyl copy of that, of the American mix. You know how Americans, when you want to release a record in America, they go, hey, we got to mix this for the American market.
Okay, then that's an interesting question. What is the difference between the Australian market and the American market, mix-wise?
Oh, look, who knows? I don't know what that is, man. Yeah, I you know, sonically maybe it's different. It sounds similar. I actually think they missed the boat a little bit in the first chorus. It's just John singing by himself. On the American mix, it may be slightly clearer, but it's more John singing by himself. Especially on the whoa, whoa, whoa parts. It's more, from memory, it's more John, whereas the Australian mix is more all those voices singing, you know.
So let's put it round. Let's talk about this legendary fretless bass intro, which, no BS aside, is one of my favorite fretless bass intros ever.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure. Totally genuine, that. Was that a composed bass line or was it an improvised bass line?
It was improvised. It's the first take. So I had
You are
recorded.
kidding me.
No, I'm not. I had recorded I had recorded the first chorus, the second chorus, and all of the outro. And they said, that's absolutely great. And then Ross Fraser said, oh, look, let's wind up to the beginning of the song and we'll press record. And we don't actually hear any bass in the opening verse. I went, yeah, okay. And so they wound back to the beginning of the song after in their minds, they had what they wanted, and they hit the record. Doug Brady hit the record button, and of course the track starts, and so you hear the hand claps, and then you hear the piano riff, and so 8 bars has gone past, and I thought I better play something. I'm sitting there going, and don't ask me, but out of the blue, so that is a one-take free improvisation. I just started playing ba-da-da-da-da-da-do, ba-da-do, ba-da-ba-do-da-da-da, even before John sings. So that is just an improvisation. And then I played a few licks, and just before the chorus starts, they stopped the tape because they didn't want to. I had one track, so they didn't want to. It's on tape, man. Yeah, so they stopped it just before the chorus comes in, and they stopped the record button, and they all looked at one another and said, everyone's falling about. I'm thinking, yeah, that's pretty good. And everyone, like John, the engineer and the producer, they're all falling around the control room going, that is fantastic. It's a keeper. And I said, are you sure? And they said, yeah, we love it. I said, okay, can I double it? And they said, no, don't want you to double it. We love it the way it is. Because I wanted to double it to make it thicker.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand that intro is literally what you felt in the moment.
Correct. Yeah, it is.
Okay, because how I conceived it in my mind is you probably had a bunch of licks that you'd figured out, and then you pick the best ones, and how they probably do it these days is go copy and paste, stick them in the right place.
No, man, that was just me absolutely going for it and just improvising. Don't ask me why I chose those notes, but, you know.
So what's absolutely blown me away about that is, first of all, your choice of notes, but then also the space that you leave, because they're 3 distinct, beautiful phrases. And let's face it, every musician can get a bit overexcited, can't they? And fill every space. But it's almost, in my mind, the space is as beautiful as the notes.
Oh, absolutely. Less is more, man. I mean, I spent a lifetime, even back in the 70s, but as a session musician, I'm always a session musician, musician. I'm always thinking, what's the least I can play to make this track work? Yeah, I could absolutely fill it up. In fact, I've been accused of that. I would go for a take and almost bass solo over the song. And the engineer or the producer would say, that's great, Roger, but save that for your solo album. In this case, they didn't. I just think I was just leaving a bit of space, a lick, let some other stuff happen, strings are swelling in, piano stuff, it's just.
Do you have
the same. He started singing, and so I'm playing little licks in between. We had a chance to turn the pages over, like playing in between his vocal, leaving space,
But then there's that beautiful little fretless bass lick at the start of about 4 bars into the second verse as well. That little bluesy lick.
Yes, yeah.
Was that? But then there's no more like that throughout the rest of the track. Was that a conscious choice just to add that in there? How did that come about?
It was a conscious choice. I had recorded the opening intro over the first verse. I'd already recorded the chorus, and they said, okay, let's have a look at the second verse. And so I played a couple of licks, and that's about it. Then it went into the chorus, then it goes into the solo, where I think in this bagpipe solo, I did play a little bit of boom, 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 bo, 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 But really, really letting the kick drum and leaving space in the track, because really it's all about John's vocal and the message, the lyric.
Yeah.
So I was very conscious of not filling it up with bass, but just showing off a little bit in the intro.
Okay, now let's move this on. So you've produced this wonderful, wonderful hit, or been part of that hit, rather, as the bass
Yeah.
part. Did you then go on and perform it live with John Farnham?
I did. He already had a bass player called Wayne Nelson playing with him. In fact, the weird thing is that when they put the band together to do the film clip, they didn't ask me to play in the film clip, which was a little disappointing. If you look at the original film clip with Farnham, there's a band there. You see David Hirschfelder on keys and the drummer Angus. And the bass player that they decided to use was a bass player called Greg McCainch, who was a well-known he was in a band called Skyhooks in the 70s. And I don't know why they picked Greg to play bass in the band and go out, but I think in the early days of Farnham touring, pretty much a lot of the bass was actually coming off sequences. Because every other bass part on that album is programmed. Take the pressure down. Yeah, it's all David Hirschfelder's programming. So they could literally go out and do a show without a bass player if they wanted to.
Right, that's interesting, isn't it?
So when they did the clip, they never asked me to do it. They didn't ask me to join the band. Don't know why. They didn't ask me to be involved in the film clip, which is a little disappointing, but
I can understand that.
Yeah. My greatest moment.
Did you ever end up playing it live with John then?
Yes, I did. Yeah. In 1986, he'd done this incredible tour, and you got to understand that Farnham was. I don't know whether you know much about John, but he was huge in the 60s, and he had a huge hit called Sadie the Cleaning Lady, and a whole bunch of other hits, and then he kind of became not the flavor of the month, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Careers change. And, he was doing weird kind of TV sitcom stuff and doing like what I call leagues clubs or, like floor show stuff material, he's a great entertainer, but it was like real middle of the road stuff, And I think this album was I shouldn't say last desperate attempt, but this album, Whispering Jack, was really designed to relaunch John Farnham. He'd done an album called Uncovered a couple of years beforehand, which Graham Goebel from Little River Band actually co-wrote some of the stuff and co-produced it. In fact, on that album was John Farnham's version of Help. I don't know whether you've ever heard that.
I've seen that, and I've seen the live clip of that, and what an extraordinary voice. I mean, it is mind-blowing. Yeah.
So to cut to the chase, yes, I did. So in 86, that album came out, man, and everywhere I went, like you'd go and get a coffee, you turn the radio on, you turn the TV on, all you heard was bloody John Farnham, you're the voice. It was just massive, and it was a number one hit for weeks and weeks and weeks, and a multi, something like 14 million units sold in Australia alone, So everywhere I went, I'd turn the radio on, get in the car, or anywhere. It didn't matter where I go to the supermarket. I'd hear myself playing bass, everywhere I went.
I've heard exactly the same story of Lewis Johnson saying the same thing with Michael Jackson, that everywhere he went, he was hearing himself. So it sounds like you're the Australian version of Lewis Johnson.
It was great. And so I eventually, his regular bass player couldn't do a tour, and it was the Jack's Back tour. And so I did. I got to tour with them through Australia and New Zealand for 2 or 3 months.
Okay, now here's the question that I've been thinking about this. This is the one question I've wanted to ask about this. Yeah. Is that line that you played on the introduction, did you play that then verbatim on when you went touring with him.
Absolutely.
So so if I understand this right, that is amazing. That something you improvised in the moment then became a composition which has been played time and time again, exactly as is.
Pretty much. And any other you see any other live performance of John, whether it's Craig Newman or Joe Crichton, when you watch them, I watch them and listen intently, and they pretty much play what I played. You know, they, I mean, it's real close. They don't play it exactly like me because I don't think they've. I mean, they've never come to me and asked me. They've just everyone knows that opening lick, you know. Everywhere I go, people sing the lick at me, you know.
But the beautiful, let's go into the fretless bass itself.
Sure.
So you took a fretted bass to the session, you took a fretless bass to the session.
I think so.
Who at the time, either consciously or subconsciously, do you think influenced you to create that sound?
I think
what was going on at that time musically?
Oh, musically. Oh, look, you know, I'm obviously a big Jacko fan.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't been influenced by Jacko, you know, and other fretless bass players? But in the late 70s, I made a conscious decision to. I actually bought an Ibanez P bass and played that. I bought a fretless and played that. Yeah, I kind of dig this. I like this, you know.
Yep.
And then I bought a 64L series. So now I had two jazz basses. That's 73 jazz, which you see behind me.
Love it. Yeah.
I bought that because I'm a Kiwi. I bought that in New Zealand for $400 in 1973, 74. That was the going price. That was a lot of money. So that was the bass that I'd had and still own. So that was the bass that I'd played on those early LRB albums and another band called Stars. So it was my regular fretted bass and I'm looking around for another. Once I'd be bitten by the fretless bug, I decided that I wanted to get into fretless. And so when I got the 64L series, that was my fretted. And I took the plunge to defret that bass, you know, which is interesting because it's a maple fingerboard with binding. And so the guy had to take I don't know how he did it. The first attempt wasn't very successful, and it was it's got a 2-tin epoxy resin over the fretboard.
So it's a proper sort of Jaco Pastorius style modification you did to it.
Well, yeah. Only it's not a rosewood. It was a laminate, like a resin coated maple fingerboard. So frets were taken out. Some chocolate coloured resin was dropped into the gaps where the frets were, and then he coated it in a 2-tin epoxy resin. And it was, when I got it back, it was okay. And then some of the resin started to lift off one of the black block inlays. So he had to rip it all off and start again. So the fretboards become thinner and thinner, you know, because of that.
Yeah.
But it's been like that now since 78, 79. So it was about 78, 79 that it became a fretless bass. And I thought, if I'm going to play fretless bass, I'm going to learn to play this in tune. You know, it's just nothing worse than out of tune fretless bass.
I can agree.
Yeah, so it's got line markers on it, but I remember I would practice in the dark, man. I'd pick up the bass, and because I had an open A string, and I would finger the A on the D string, and I'm blind. I can't see a damn thing. So I would learn to feel my way around the fretboard, but it also taught me, cleaned up my technique, because before then I was very much a thumb over, squeeze the fretboard, and all of a sudden I had to play in tune, and I learned to play one finger per fret, across the fingerboard.
Yep.
So I would do hours and hours of practice of playing simple scales, but really spacing my fingers out, playing one note per finger on the fret, and move up and down chromatic scales, and try doing it in the dark, you know.
That's it.
So I worked on it, and my vibrato, I guess, because there were no instructional videos around then. I just figured out how to do it. I'm listening to Jacko, I'm listening to everyone else, and going, well, yeah, I can play a note, but I can roll my finger like that, like a cello, and get that beautiful, as opposed to that sort of vibrato, bending the string up. It was a roll across, ba 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 ba, that. So I spent hours practicing, getting my intonation and getting a good vibrato, learning to play octaves and fifths and sliding octaves and fifths. So you're perfectly tuned all the way up,
Yeah. Okay. So the story of how Roger and I came to have this discussion is over the last month or so, I got offered some dates on a wonderful show here in the UK called I'm Alive, which is a Celine Dion tribute show with this incredible singer called January who is the front of it. And You're the Voice was in the set. And when I saw it in the set, this is what made me go, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And I did the first show all on just my 5-string, which is sat over there. It's all the MD wanted. But when the second and third show came up, I thought, I've got to take my fretless in, even if it's just for one song. And that's all I ended up playing. I wanted to do one in the first set, actually, but everything was dead segue and there wasn't time to change. And it's reconnected me with this beautiful instrument here, which is my Overwater 4-string fretless here, which really, quite frankly, thank you, has been gathering dust now for, I don't know, 10 years or something. And that's quite true. And it's everything you've just said about the hand shape, the intonation is everything I've experienced over the last month, and realised probably from what you've said there's about another 2 years of work before it's anywhere near passable. But it's great. I'm really grateful for you for giving me that inspiration just to pick this great instrument up again. So thank you.
That's my pleasure.
So it sounds, what do you think is the biggest challenge? And we touched on this a bit of playing fretless.
The biggest, look, I just think intonation, playing the damn thing in tune,
Yeah.
Look, one of the greatest compliments I ever had, I was doing a session once, and I always used to take my fretted, and I decided, I'm just going to play my fretless on the session. And we'd either doing jingles or recording something, I can't remember what. And so I'm just playing the bass, and I'm not sliding, I'm not adding it, I'm just playing it like it's a fretted bass. And all of a sudden, I must have let rip with a lick. And the engineer said, I didn't know you were playing your fretless. And I went, well, thank you. Because I'd been playing it all through the session, and he didn't realize that it was obviously dead in tune. And the only thing that gave it away was when I played a lick or slid into a note or applied some vibrato. So, I think that's the biggest challenge is intonation and vibrato. Those are the two secrets, I reckon.
So a lot of time has passed since the 80s and that massive hit. Is the fretless still such a big part of your life? Is it your choice, or have you gone back to fretless?
Not as much as I would like it to be. When I do recordings at home, quite often, even now, people will send me a track and ask me to play fretless on it. So I guess that's still rattling around in their head that I play fretless, so they want a little bit of that You're the Voice magic on their track.
I see, that makes sense.
So that's what, and I've got a few fretlesses. I've got a Maton JB4. I've got a beautiful Warwick 5-string thumb bass fretless, which is probably my fretless of choice, just because it's the scope of the low notes and everything. But there's still something about the when I drag out that jazz and plug it in, I go, there it is. I play Warwick 5-string thumb bass pretty much all the time now.
Interesting.
But that's my weapon of choice. But when I go out and do maybe a little Sunday afternoon pub gig, I go, you know what, I'm just going to take one of my Fenders. And I realised the joy of playing a 4-string Fender jazz bass. It's like home. It's like a comfortable pair of slippers. It kind of reminds me why I love playing bass and what you can do on a humble 4-string, you know.
Okay, brilliant.
Nice to have the low note, but there's something about playing a 4-string, you know.
And I love the simplicity of it. And over the last 10 years, I
Yeah.
went back to playing that 4-string, which is over there, and that's done 90% of my work.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It just feels like home to me, that 4-string bass with 21 frets or whatever a Fender is. It just works. Actually, that's a Sadowski, but the Fender makeup.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the Sadowski, man. They're beautiful basses.
Yeah, they're great. So we talked about you did it on a fretless Fender jazz bass.
Yep.
What amplification did you use? I'm guessing if you're in the studio, you probably went straight into the board.
Went straight into the board, man. Straight into a DI box.
Brilliant. So you're literally just hearing a natural
Yeah, you're
bass.
literally hearing the bass. There might have been a bit of EQ. There might have been probably a little bit of compression, but probably not a lot. I don't think there's any reverb. There's no reverb or delay on it. So all that slipping and sliding and stuff and that space that I create is just me playing the bass. I don't believe there are any effects on that recording. It's just raw jazz bass, you know.
Beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
this has been the most amazing insight into in my view, one of the greatest bass tracks that's ever been made.
Thank you,
Thank you
James.
for making it. I mean, it's been huge influence to me. It's been a real genuine pleasure to have had a go at playing it over the last month or so live. So thank you for that, Roger. And it's been a real treat discussing how the whole thing came about, because the story is a little bit different to how I imagined in my mind it would have come about. So
I think it's surprising I've spoken about this to a lot of people in various interviews, and I think they're always amazed the fact that, as you say, the opening licks they imagine was stuff written out. Were you multiple takes? I go, no, man, that whole intro over the first intro and first verse is one take, literally one take. The first take, I might add. Yeah. Got lucky. Got real lucky. Yeah. I think that's why they stopped the tape and they just went, oh, that's incredible. You know, I said, you like it? They go, we love it. You know, so sometimes you get lucky, man. But, you know, you make your own luck. And I realize that one take is a result of years of playing and years of improvising, taking solos, playing in jazz bands. It's just a combination of all those things. Don't know where that lick came from. I suspect that lick has been in my arsenal for some time.
So You're the Voice is an absolutely iconic bass intro. Have you ever been asked to replicate that again on different tracks?
You mean the same licks or?
I mean the same flavor, the same idea.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I have. And it's because it's become part of who I am and what I've done. As I said, people will bring me up and I've had people wanted to hire that bass because they think they're going to get some magic. And I go, can we hire your bass for our bass? I said, yeah, you can. I said, what is it you're wanting to achieve? Oh, we want that sound that you got on You're the Voice. I said, well, that sound is going to come from me playing it.
So the reason why I asked this question is I once read that both Phil Collins and Pino Palladino during the 80s felt their playing had become slightly cliche, I guess, like that incredible fretless bass sound. And then Phil Collins with the
yes, the drum fill, yeah.
That legendary drum fill. And there is a story that I heard, I hope it's true, and I'm not parroting stuff that isn't quite accurate, but when Tears for Fears came to do the incredible Sowing in the Seas of Love, there was a track, and I can't think of the name, I think it's Badman's song. It's, I would need to double check that. But you can literally, where there is literally the incredible pit where they wanted that sound. of there. And they even apparently wanted that Phil Collins drum lick, but he said, I just can't do that again. And so you can hear that moment where it's almost been engineered for the Phil Collins drum fill at the end.
Yeah.
And he's played something slightly different. And I'm curious, did having played something as iconic as that start to ever feel cliche to you afterwards?
No, man, I played every opportunity I can. I'm terrible with it. Yeah, we end of a song. I'm shocking. I have no shame with that lick. You know, I might be, and I'll play it in any key at any given point in time. I'll quote it in a solo for a laugh because everyone knows it. You know? So we come to the end of a song, and it might be, you know, I did it my way, and I'll play ba da 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 da, and finish the song with that lick.
Oh, amazing! Is that so you can get the right?
I kid you not. And yeah, I mean, I'll do that as a bit of a joke, you know, but it's the universe. To me, it's the universal lick. You can stick it in anywhere and it works, you know, because it's kind of a bluesy, not bluesy sort of lick, you know. And yes, people have rung me up and I've been in sessions after that, yeah, in the studio or even at home, and people say, "Oh, we want you to play some fretless bass," you know, something like what you did on "You're the Voice," you know. So I'm quite happy to play melodic lines. I love playing melodies on my bass. It's, you know, I'm a frustrated singer, so when I play melodies and improvisations, it's me singing, and I love doing it, and I'm quite happy to play something similar. Obviously, I can't record the same lick, but I have been known to quote parts of it. You know, there's little bits and pieces. Sometimes I'll quote the second lick in the intro, which is bow, bow, down. That's a real Jacko lick, you know. It's a Pino Palladino lick. And so that crops up now and then, you know.
Brilliant. That's really insightful.
At least expected. Yeah. I'm doing a little pub gig on Sunday. It'll probably rear its ugly head there at some point.
So I'm sensing you're a musician that likes to bring a little bit of humour and lightheartedness into your music.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's always a huge part of it. I mean, I've been on so many gigs where you have horn players quoting something completely inappropriate, that kind of thing, just to get them right. Musician smile going on or look across the stage.
Oh, absolutely. I will. I'm terrible like that. I love. I don't know why I do it, but all of a sudden I can be playing a song and a Paul McCartney riff. I think, gee, Paul McCartney's riff or from a song or whatever it is will work exactly across this song, you know.
Yeah, totally.
I'll pull out the Day Tripper riff, you know. I'll pull out da 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 ba Sunshine of Your Love, you know. These things, they're just these licks and they're just embedded in my brain. You know, I've been listening to them since I was 10 years old when I first heard the Beatles, you know.
One of the interesting things is you mentioned several other bass players that have played the You're the Voice intro over the years. Yeah. And what I find fascinating about the fretless bass is the way it can open up so many more articulations and phrasing into the playing. And I guess every player probably plays the same notes as you, but nobody quite plays it the same because how much do you slide into a note? How much vibrato do you use? Do you hammer? Do you slide? I mean, there's so many options, aren't there?
Well, there are, and they really do come up because that opening lick is and I have to think about it, but it's not all articulated. I think I play ba da. But I'd have to pick up a bass. But some of it's hammered on, some of it's articulated, if you know what I mean.
Cool.
Da 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 da. That da is actually a hammer on.
I don't know. So
how do you play it?
Let me show me. All right. Let's see. How do I play it? I would do that.
Yeah.
I would slide into. This is how I would naturally play it. So.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, so I don't think I slide into it. Do I slide into it? Yeah.
So yeah. That feels really natural to me. That.
Yeah,
And then
sure.
but this is the phrase which I find really interesting. That, and this pulls out my technique. Is I think you probably. How do
Hang
you
on,
do it?
I've got to get my bass off the wall. I think I might hammer on that note.
Yeah.
So from the E flat to the F is a hammer on.
Yeah.
I don't restrike it. It's a hammer on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I play with the third finger. I don't know whether I play the third note. I think I actually hammer it on. Can you hear that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Just, yes, because it's just been picked up by the microphone. So the next lick is, then I play.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I slide down. Bow, da, da.
Beautiful.
Then I play this. It's not.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it starts on the F.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That is very interesting.
I don't think I'll slide up, but you can. Yeah.
All right.
Go
Okay.
back and have another look at that little video that I made. You can carefully actually see, and of course all the run-ins to the chorus.
Yeah.
There's the bagpipe.
So Roger, I just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your experience of playing that bass intro and the rest of the bass part on You're the Voice. It's been a real treat discussing this, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jane. My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. And have fun playing it live on the Celine Dion tour, man. That'll be great.
Guys, that's the end of the video today. Thank you so much to Roger. That was really full of bass guitar gold. Make sure you check out Roger's YouTube channel because he has loads of fantastic stories and inspiration of his own on there. So we'll put a link to that in the description below. Also, make sure you check out the greatest fretless bass guitar intro ever video. I'll put a link to that in the description below where you can learn great fretless bass licks from You're the Voice. Also, if you've got any questions for Roger, please be sure to put them in the comments below and we'll try and get him to answer them for you. Cheers, I've been James from ebassguitar.com and I'll catch you soon.